Chapter 680 Sword Mountain. Chapter 680 Sword Mountain. It was a very advanced sword principle. Since Jian Wushuang only had superficial knowledge, he was unable to comprehend most of it. Very profound. Jian Wushuang shook his head and looked at some of the other Dao characters, but they were also too profound for him to understand. Finally, Xianyi began to explain. Sword principle is quite broad and profound, and you've just recently condensed your sword heart, which is only the starting line for truly cultivating sword principle. Sword principle is very complicated. Because of that, it is divided into 72 concepts, which are like 72 rivers joining to form a sea. If you only understand one concept, you can only comprehend a tiny part of sword principle. So, if you want to truly comprehend sword principle, you have to completely understand all 72 concepts. For now, you still have a long journey ahead of you, Xianyi said and smiled. After hearing this, Jian Wushuang shrugged, but he didn't feel depressed. He was still very young, so he had time to cultivate and meditate on sword principle. As of now, he had only just reached the most basic requirement. However, if he had enough time, it would be very possible for him to comprehend all of them. There are 72 Dao characters in this cave mansion, and every one of them represents the pinnacle in a concept of sword principles. Every Dao character represents one of the essences of sword principle. So now what you need to do is try your best to comprehend them and improve your understanding of sword principle. Compared to cultivating on your own, this will be easier and more effective, Xianyi said. After hearing that, Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. If he tried to cultivate sword principle on his own, even with Xianyi's guidance, there would still be a limit on how much he could improve. However, if he had the essences that make up sword principle as a reference, it would be a different story. These 72 Dao characters encompassed all the different concepts of sword principle and broke them down to their most basic form. Being able to use this would be the same as taking an incredibly difficult task and breaking it into numerous simple tasks. It might be impossible for him to complete such a difficult task. But, if they were broken up into numerous simple tasks, he could work on them one step at a time. At the same time, he would be slowly improving his comprehension of sword principle. Doing it this way made it much easier to handle. Is this Sword Mountain? Jian Wushuang was very excited as he clasped his hands. He knew the requirement for entering Sword Mountain was very high, so he expected it to be an exceptional place for cultivating. To his great surprise, it was much more incredible than he expected because it was tailor-made for warriors who cultivated sword principle. As long as he meditated on these 72 Dao characters, his comprehension of sword principle would definitely improve. Although the requirement to enter is high, there is no time limit once you enter. You can stay here for as long as you want. Also, there are a few things I would like to give to you, Xianyi said. Jian Wushuang looked at him. Previously, Xianyi had told him that he would apply for some resources to give him. The first is a secret skill. Xianyi said, secret skills are very powerful, but the cultivation requirements are also very high. Most secret skills that can improve physical power require the warrior to be in the divine realm. However, you are only in the skyscraping realm, so you can't use those skills yet. However, I will give some that you can cultivate and are useful for you. The first secret skill is a sword art. Xianyi said and then handed a jade slip to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang accepted it and took a quick glance at it. Boundless Heaven Sword Art. Jian Wushuang felt a rush of excitement in his heart. This jade slip recorded the Boundless Heaven Sword Art, which was a very powerful secret skill. There was a total of 7 sword movements and the power was quite terrifying. Moreover, the Boundless Heaven Sword Art utilized both sword principle and Dao comprehension, which made it a very versatile skill. As long as he reached the minimum requirement, he could even use the Boundless Heaven Sword Art with either the World Dao or Slaughter Dao. This secret skill is different from a self-created one. Those can be used to attack, defend, and movement since self-created skills will suit you perfectly. However, secret skills such as sword arts, saber techniques, and stick technique are killing moves. If you look at the Boundless Heaven Sword Art, it contains 7 sword moves that are all killing moves. It requires tremendous spiritual power to use them, but the power will be greater than a self-created skill. On top of that, you've already reached the requirement for learning the first move, Xianyi said. I've reached the requirement for learning the first move? Jian Wushuang was shocked but quickly understood the reason. The last sword scar from the 3 that master has left is the requirement. Yes. Xianyi smiled and nodded. That sword imitates the first move of the Boundless Heaven sword art. However, it is only an imitation, so it can't compare with the real first move. After hearing that, Jian Wushuang was stunned. He had comprehended and practiced the 3rd sword scar. Its power was already terrifying and much powerful than the superior rank 3 secret skill that he created, Violet Star Destruction. Since it was only an imitation of the first move of the Boundless Heaven sword art, its power would be far weaker than the original. How powerful would the first move be? The Boundless Heaven sword art can improve your offensive power, but the most important thing for a warrior is to protect themselves, so I also acquired a protective skill for you, the Dragon Blood secret skill. It is a skill that will help you escape by increasing your speed for a short time. However, it burns your spiritual power to achieve this, so this skill should only be used to escape, not to fight. You should study it carefully. Xianyi handed the 2nd jade slip to Jian Wushuang. It requires you to burn your spiritual power? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Spiritual power was the core of a warrior's power. To burn their spiritual power? It was very unlikely that anyone in the eternal world would dare to do that. Finally, I have one more secret skill, a very unique skill, Xianyi said as he handed a golden scroll to Jian Wushuang. This scroll was a golden jade slip that gave off an ancient aura. Jian Wushuang took it and quickly skimmed through it. Universal Dao Scripture? Chapter 681 Universal Dao Scripture. Chapter 681 Universal Dao Scripture. Universal Dao Scripture. Jian Wushuang frowned. This golden scroll recorded a secret skill called the Universal Dao Scripture. This secret skill described the method for cultivating, but it didn't explain what it actually did. You must be patient and cultivate it. Later on, you will understand how useful it is, Xianyi answered with a hint of mystery. Although Jian Wushuang was confused, he still nodded. He didn't know how useful this secret skill would be, but it was obvious by looking at the cultivation method that it wouldn't harm him. Moreover, he wasn't worried about it because it was given to him by his master. In addition to these 3, I know you've also cultivated the immortality secret skill. Xianyi looked at Jian Wushuang. Usually it's better to cultivate while using natural treasures that improve your physical strength, so I've acquired some for you. They are all in this interspatial ring. Xianyi handed the interspatial ring to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was surprised and happy when he saw it. There were 4 techniques in the immortality secret skill: the bone fusion technique, blood condensation technique, armor technique, and divine body technique. When he was in the ancient world, he had already finished cultivating the bone fusion technique. However, he hadn't started on the blood condensation technique because he lacked natural treasures. Now, he would be able to start cultivating it and even try to reach the advanced level. As his physical body grew stronger, his strength would also skyrocket. I've done what I can. Now, everything else will depend on you, Xianyi said. Thank you, Master. Jian Wushuang expressed his gratitude. Xianyi waved and left while Jian Wushuang stayed in the cave mansion. As he looked at the 72 Dao characters on the stone wall, a spark flashed through Jian Wushuang's eyes. Master has obtained all these resources for me. But how much I can improve depends on myself. I need to work hard. He immediately sat down with his legs crossed, then his figure vibrated and instantly separated into his 2 original bodies. Sword Principle, Sword. His 2 original bodies started to meditate. Since these 2 original bodies both had their own consciousness, they were able to meditate on different Dao characters, which sped up the process. Moreover, he had good talent in Sword Principle and the Dao characters had been simplified, so it was much easier for him to meditate on them. As time flew by, his comprehension of Sword Principle continued improving. While meditating on Sword Principle, he was also working on the World Dao, the Slaughter Dao, and the other 3 secret skills that Xianyi gave to him. Among these 3 secret skills, the Boundless Heaven sword art required a higher level of comprehension in Sword Principle. As for the Dragon Blood secret skill, he only needed to know the method for burning his spiritual power, the rest would be easy. There were 2 levels for this skill. For the first level, spiritual power was burned slowly, and his speed could increase to 10 times his normal speed. However, for the second level, spiritual power was burned at an incredible rate, so even a divine realm expert would only last about 10 breaths before their spiritual power was completely exhausted. However, while he was burning his spiritual power, his speed would be hundreds of times faster than usual, so it was the perfect skill for escaping. As for the universal Tao scripture, this was a unique secret skill. Jian Wushuang spent a long time studying it before he finally started to cultivate it. However, he didn't notice any difference after completing the cultivation. Perhaps it was like Xianyi said, he would have to wait to understand its benefits. Jian Wushuang focused his attention and meditated at Sword Mountain, totally ignored the passage of time. From spring to winter, time flew by. Without him realizing it, 6 years had passed. At the ancient sect, inside the Tao Palace, many disciples had gathered together and were participating in small talk. Did you hear? 3 days ago, Feng, the personal disciple of Palace Master Destruction, broke through and became a divine realm expert. And since his comprehension of Tao is very high, he has already become an advanced divine realm expert. In the future, if he cultivates even more secret skills, he is almost guaranteed to become a superior divine realm expert. Superior divine realm expert, that's the same level as the vice palace master level of the Tao Palace. Yes, Feng really has good talent. Lots of disciples were impressed by the news. After considering their levels of Tao comprehension, weapon cultivation, original secret skills, and some other means, divine realm experts have been divided into 4 levels: novice, intermediate, advanced, and superior. However, there was a huge gap between each level. Even 10 novice divine realm experts working together to fight an intermediate divine realm expert would be overpowered. But even novice divine realm experts could have big differences in strength between each other. An advanced divine realm expert was already counted as a high-level expert. As for superior divine realm experts, in the ancient sect there were numerous divine realm experts. The Divine Palace had hundreds of novice, intermediate, and advanced divine realm experts, but only a few superior divine realm experts. Usually, a superior divine realm expert could be a vice palace master of the Tao Palace. Feng had been in the ancient sect for no more than 10 years, but he had already broken through and become an advanced divine realm expert. That was really amazing because most of the disciples would only be novice divine realm experts when they broke through. A few of them could even reach intermediate divine realm in battle strength, but only a couple would possess battle strength at the advanced divine realm level. Feng has broken through and become a divine realm expert, but what about Jian Wushuang? They came to the ancient sect at the same time and his talent is better than Feng's, so he should have reached an even more amazing level. A disciple suddenly said, Jian Wushuang? I don't know. I heard he has been cultivating at Sword Mountain for several years. It's very seldom that he comes back to Enlightenment Mountain and he hasn't challenged anyone, so no one knows how strong he is. However, he has definitely improved a lot. Even if he still can't break through to the divine realm, he will not be weaker than Feng. Yes, after only being in the ancient sect for 2 years, he could already pass the 30th floor of the 9th heaven road. Now, he is the personal disciple of Palace Master Xianyi, so he should have made some extremely significant improvements. Chapter 682 Prove Yourself. Chapter 682 Prove Yourself. As the disciples were talking about Jian Wushuang, they couldn't help being amazed. Jian Wushuang had already become a monster in the ancient sect the moment he passed the 30th floor of the 9th heaven road during the sect competition. The Sword Mountain was still not noticeable. Whoosh! A figure appeared in the sky above Sword Mountain. The figure turned out to be Xianyi. He glanced at the cave mansion and smiled, then entered it. Jian Wushuang had his eyes closed and was still in the middle of practicing his swordsmanship. Though it's being referred to as swordsmanship, it was actually just a simple sword slash. It was simple, easy, and quick. But when Xianyi saw it, he smiled. Going from complexity to simplicity, that is the proof of having reached profound realm. He has already comprehended the first level of sword heart. Xianyi smiled slightly. At that moment, Jian Wushuang stopped and looked at Xianyi. Master. Jian Wushuang greeted him respectfully. During these 6 years, Xianyi had come to see him every several times and given him advice on many occasions, so he knew that Xianyi was trying to help him. Although 6 years was not that long, they had built a deep friendship. You have been meditating in Sword Mountain for 6 years. It's time for you to leave, Xianyi said with a smile. Jian Wushuang was surprised, but a smile quickly appeared on his face. These 72 Dao characters were indeed very mysterious. In the first couple years of meditating on them, he made dramatic improvements in sword principle. However, his progress eventually began to slow down. Especially recently, his improvement had become very slow. It was still faster than meditating on his own, but compared to when he first started, there was a big difference. Jian Wushuang realized that the 72 Dao characters were less useful now than they were before. In 2 months, the Eternal Zone will reopen, Xianyi said. The Eternal Zone? Jian Wushuang suddenly looked at Xianyi in surprise. The Eternal Zone is an important event in the firmament territory that happens every 100 years, Xianyi explained. When it reopens, lots of disciples from the 3 magnates and 9 top sects will be allowed to enter it. Usually, most of them have broken through to the divine realm and some of them are still pretty young, so the 3 magnates and 9 top sects have an agreement. The disciples in the divine realm only get 1 chance to enter, and every time only a certain number of disciples from each sect are allowed to go. That means the people who enter are the top disciples from all the sects. These geniuses can enter the outer layer of the Eternal Zone, but only the experts in the Eternal Realm can enter the inner layer. They can stay there for 1 month, and when the Eternal Zone closes, the experts all will come out. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly in acknowledgement. He realized that the Eternal Zone was very unique, otherwise the 3 magnates and 9 top sects wouldn't so pay much attention to it. It's been 100 years already. During this period of time, our ancient sect has found some excellent disciples and you are one of them, so I will arrange for you to enter the Eternal Zone, Xianyi said. Me? Jian Wushuang was astonished. According to what Xianyi said, the disciples who were allowed to enter the Eternal Zone would already have broken through and become divine realm experts, but he was only in the skyscraping realm. Even though, based on Dao comprehension and other complex skills, he was capable of breaking through to become a divine realm expert, he was not planning to do it right now. After all, the skyscraping realm was the equivalent of the heaven-treading realm in the heavenly creation skill, which was the most appropriate level for cultivating, so he wanted to remain at this level longer. Don't worry. Although you are only in the skyscraping realm, your battle strength is definitely good enough. Ordinary divine realm experts are not qualified to be your opponents. Xianyi smiled slightly and continued, 6 years ago, you had already passed the 30th floor of the 9th heaven road. At that moment, your battle strength was at the peak of the intermediate divine realm and almost at the advanced divine realm. 6 years have already passed since that time, so you must have had a significant improvement. Just a bit. Jian Wushuang couldn't help laughing. During the last 6 years, he had focused on improving his comprehension of sword principle at Sword Mountain, and hadn't paid much attention to the World Dao and Slaughter Dao. However, his talent was pretty high, so even if he only spent a small amount of time meditating on them, his comprehension of these 2 Dao still had a significant improvement. Now, he had already comprehended the 4th occult and most of the 5th. The most important point was that his current understanding of sword principle was completely different from 6 years ago. 6 years ago, he had to do his best to reach the 31st floor of the 9th heaven road, but he was still defeated by the 10 puppet fighters. However, 5 years ago, he passed the 31st floor. Obviously, his strength was at an even higher level now. We of the ancient sect usually arrange for the genius disciples who are in the advanced divine realm to enter the Eternal Zone, so you only need to prove that you have the battle strength of an advanced divine realm expert. I've got a task from the Divine Palace for you. This task can help you prove yourself. Xianyi passed a task scroll to Jian Wushuang. A task. Jian Wushuang opened it and took a quick glance. Immediately after that, he had an odd expression on his face. Earth-level task. In the Divine Palace, the tasks assigned to the Divine Realm experts were divided into levels: the human level, earth level, and heaven level. The human level was the easiest, so novice and intermediate Divine Realm experts were able to complete them easily. However, the earth-level tasks were very difficult, and only advanced Divine Realm experts would be capable of completing them. As for the heaven-level tasks, they could only be assigned to the superior divine realm experts. Xianyi got him an earth-level task which was also at a difficult level. Task content: kill 11 evil divine realm experts who are in the vicinity of the ancient sect. The task would only be complete once the 11 divine realm experts were all killed. The scroll contained the information and locations of these 11 divine realm experts. Among these 11 divine realm experts, the weakest one was at the peak of the intermediate divine realm. There were also 5 advanced divine realm experts, and one of them, Hu, was a peak advanced divine realm expert. He was not going to be easy to deal with. Chapter 683 Emperor Sword. Chapter 683 Emperor Sword. Master really thinks highly of me as he asks me, a skyscraping realm cultivator, to kill divine realm experts, including 5 advanced divine realm experts. Jian Wushuang sighed with emotions in private. After all, there was a world of difference between beating someone and slaying them. A divine realm expert, especially an advanced expert, often held 1 or 2 secret skills. Some of them were even capable of life-saving secret skills like Dragon Blood secret skill. Jian Wushuang might have the ability to defeat an advanced divine realm expert, but he didn't hold much confidence in slaying one. As though he already knew what Jian Wushuang was thinking, Xianyi spoke. Rest assured, I personally selected this mission for you. The 11 divine realm experts all share the same skill and battle strength. None of them are very capable of life-saving skills. Given your strength, you can surely kill them. Is that so? Jian Wushuang asked, his confidence now growing. If they were unable to perform excellent life-saving techniques, it was possible that he could indeed kill them. This is the map of the territory which is under our ancient sect's control. The 11 divine realm experts are within this territory. You can study the route yourself and you must kill them all in 2 months, instructed Xianyi. Okay. Jian Wushuang took the map and nodded his head. There is one more thing. Xianyi looked at Jian Wushuang. The sword you're using now was brought by you from the ancient world, correct? It can barely reach the divine weapon level. It is most suited to some novice or intermediate divine realm experts. It's not very suitable for you. Jian Wushuang was in a daze. The sword he used? Heart-killing sword. Indeed, he had brought it from the ancient world after acquiring from a sword ancestor. Divine weapon? Jian Wushuang queried. Above Dao weapon was divine weapon. Plenty of experts used Dao weapons, but there was few divine weapons in the ancient world. It was only thanks to a sword ancestor that Jian Wushuang was eligible to get a divine weapon. He had to this point been using the heart-killing sword effortlessly, but as he grew stronger, he found it was no longer capable of displaying his full strength. I have a sword for you. Take it. Xianyi stretched out his hand, in which appeared a purple long sword. As soon as it showed up, an extremely strong killing intent of the sword spread at once, which instantly made Jian Wushuang understand that the purple longsword was also a sword of killing like his heart-killing sword, but its power was much stronger. Master, what's this? Jian Wushuang gazed upon this purple longsword. Its sword blade was thin and its sword edge was emitting a glowing cold light, making it appear very sharp. This is Emperor Sword, a magic weapon of eternal realm level. Xianyi smiled casually as he spoke. Divine weapon? Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. There was Dao weapon, divine weapon, and then eternal weapon. Dao weapons were most commonly used by skyscraping realm cultivators. Divine weapons were usually used by divine realm experts. Jian Wushuang's heart-killing sword only just reached the level of divine weapon. Therefore it was suited to novice and intermediate divine realm experts. Advanced divine realm experts and superior divine realm experts used divine weapons with superior power. Eternal weapons, on the other hand, were used by eternal realm experts. This sword contains unusual power. Given your ability now, you cannot harness all of its power, but if you can access just a small amount of it, that will give you enough strength. I also want you to take this token. When on a difficult journey, you'll inevitably encounter a crisis. If all else fails, you can crush this token and I'll do my best to save you. Promised Xianyi. Thank you, Master. Jian Wushuang spoke gratefully. He knew in his heart that his master sincerely cared for him. That's all. Set out as early as possible. Xianyi waved his hand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and bowed respectfully to Xianyi before turning around to leave. Jian Wushuang planned to return to Enlightenment Mountain first. On his journey back, he encountered many ancient sect disciples. Jian Wushuang. That's Jian Wushuang. He has not been seen for a long time. I have been told that he has been staying in Sword Mountain for cultivation. Does he want to leave today? These disciples kept their distance, looking at Jian Wushuang from afar, their eyes full of awe. Jian Wushuang also met two palace masters who happened to walk by. They were Palace Master Destruction, who was Feng's master, and Palace Master Baiyu, who had once intended to accept Jian Wushuang as a personal disciple. They watched Jian Wushuang in the distance. It's Jian Wushuang. He has been staying in the Sword Mountain for cultivation and for the past 6 years has not shown his strength. I wonder how strong he is now, Palace Master Baiyu said with admiration. I have heard that Palace Master Xianyi had just gotten a mission at the Divine Palace, and it's an Earth-level task. It seems Jian Wushuang has been tasked with this mission, Palace Master Destruction observed. Earth-level task? Are they not reserved for advanced Divine Realm experts? Palace Master Baiyu looked perplexed. No, claimed the Palace Master Destruction as a bitter smile stretched across his face. He himself also had accepted a favorite disciple to his sect, Feng, who he knew was much weaker than Jian Wushuang. This lad really is a beast. Palace Master Baiyu softly shook his head. At that moment he caught sight of the purple longsword on Jian Wushuang's back. Huh. The expression on Palace Master Baiyu's face suddenly froze. What's the matter, Baiyu? Palace Master Destruction looked at him with confusion. Palace Master Destruction, look closely. Is that the Emperor's sword strapped to his back? Palace Master Baiyu spoke, his tone displaying a hint of shock. Emperor's sword? Palace Master Destruction was left dumbfounded, as he saw Jian Wushuang carrying the purple longsword. Seeing this, the expression on Palace Master Destruction's face tightened. Good lord, Palace Master Xianyi actually gave him the Emperor's sword. It is clear that he holds Jian Wushuang in high regard. Palace Master Destruction explained. The Emperor's sword isn't just an eternal weapon. Most importantly, it is Sword Palace's token, representing the successor of the Sword Palace. Palace Master Baiyu's eyes gleamed. Soon after Jian Wushuang returned to Enlightenment Mountain, he took time to pack some things, ready to leave the ancient sect to complete the Earth-level task. In front of a giant wormhole in the ancient sect, Jian Wushuang held the territory map from Xianyi in his hand and carefully studied it. The territory under the control of the ancient sect is extremely vast, and the 11 Divine Realm experts that I need to kill are scattered across the territory. It will be difficult to kill them one by one. The first place I'm going is here. He looked at a city on the map, Danyang City. Chapter 684 Danyang City. Chapter 684. Danyang City. Danyang City was within the vast territory under the control of the ancient sect. It was a very ordinary small city. This kind of city was home to many warriors but few experts. According to the information given to Jian Wushuang, there were many families in the city. Among these families, even the strongest cultivators were only at the novice or intermediate divine realm. There were no advanced divine realm experts. Not long ago, a great demon named Bingji suddenly appeared in Danyang City. With immense strength, he quickly overpowered and slaughtered many of the divine realm experts from the city. Many families lost both experts and warriors at the hands of Bingji. Helpless, these families sought help from the ancient sect. There was a family named He. The He family were among the most respected in Danyang City. With 3 intermediate divine realm experts, the He family enjoyed a combined strength unrivaled by other families. However, with only 1 intermediate divine realm expert left, and the deaths of quite a few novice divine realm experts, their strength had significantly declined. Jian Wushuang approached the gate of the large mansion of the He family. Who are you? Demanded one of the 2 guards that stopped Jian Wushuang. Without speaking, Jian Wushuang waved his hand as he produced a token. It was the disciple token of the ancient sect. An ancient sect disciple? The 2 guards were amazed to see the token. One of them said hurriedly, "Lord, wait a minute, please. I'll report to our master immediately." With that, the guard turned and headed for the mansion. There were dozens of people gathered in the large meeting hall of the He family. All doors and windows had been tightly sealed. Taking the lead of the meeting was a gray-haired elder. He was He Yun, the current master of the He family, and the only surviving intermediate divine realm expert of the family. Others were some experts from the He family, as well as masters and experts belonging to other families of Danyang City. These families had formed an alliance since Bingji appeared in Danyang City. He Yun, the Bingji threatens to wipe out every family in Danyang City if we cannot pay a ransom to him of 500,000 divine gems within 24 hours. What should we do now? A white-robed old lady frowned worryingly as her voice echoed throughout the meeting hall, making the atmosphere become even tenser. 500,000 divine gems. He demands too much. 500,000 divine gems. Haha, collectively, the families here have barely been able to accumulate 1 million over the years, and he expects us to pay out 500,000 in one go. Hump. We will not pay. If it comes to a life and death battle, then so be it. The divine realm experts present spoke, full of irritation and anger. 500,000 divine gems was a fortune to the families of Danyang City. After all, the assets of an eternal realm expert would add up to 1 million divine gems, and most of the superior divine realm experts had only a few 100,000 divine gems or so. Due to years of accumulation, these families would be able to offer some gems, but 500,000 divine gems was still far more than they could afford. Enough! Silence! A notably distinguished voice rang out. He Yun, sitting at the head of the room, finally opened his mouth to speak. Bingji is a true advanced divine realm expert, and you all know very well the difference between an advanced divine realm expert and an intermediate divine realm expert. To put it bluntly, he's capable of killing all of us in this room single-handed. Do you want to fight against him? In doing so, are you not courting death? Hearing this, the divine realm experts in the hall became silent. Fight against Bingji. They had tried this before with little success. In their last encounter, a number of divine realm experts had died, as well as 2 intermediate divine realm experts from the He family, without Bingji being hurt in the slightest. The gap between intermediate and advanced divine realm experts was immense. Since he wants divine gems, we can give them to him for the time being. He Yun continued, I have already sent a message to the ancient sect for help. Its expert will arrive soon. When the expert is here, Bingji can't run amok anymore. As for the divine gems that we hand over, we can get it back then. The best we can do for the ancient sect expert is to ensure that he gets everything he needs. Well said. Bingji may be an advanced divine realm expert, but he's no match for the ancient sect. We'll wait until the expert sent by the ancient sect arrives. The divine realm experts all agreed with He Yun, happily awaiting the arrival of the ancient sect expert. After all, their combined strength would still not be enough to fight Bingji, though the ancient sect could easily kill him. What I fear most is that once we give Bingji the divine gems, he will immediately flee and the ancient sect expert will make a futile trip. At that time we'll still suffer, so we must find ways to hold him here until the expert arrives. When He Yun was talking, the closed door suddenly swung open and a figure entered the room. It was the guard who came to report. How dare you interrupt? He Yun's face darkened. Master, lords, there's someone waiting at the door with the disciple token of the ancient sect. Not only that, but it's an inner disciple token, the guard blurted out. What? The divine realm experts in the hall were at first surprised, and then became ecstatic. The ancient sect expert has arrived? He Yun jumped up in excitement. Then he spoke. Quickly, invite him in. Yes, sir. The guard hurried out to invite Jian Wuxuan inside. Everybody, let us go welcome him in, commanded He Yun. Everyone left the hall to welcome Jian Wuxuan, who was soon visible to this group of divine realm experts. But when they looked closer at Jiang Wuxuan, is this a joke? He Yun, the Grand Master of the He family and an intermediate divine realm expert, widened his eyes. A skyscraping realm. As a divine realm expert, he had an uncanny ability of perceiving aura. He instantly recognized the young man in front of him as a skyscraping realm cultivator, a fact that would not change even though this young man seemed to be an expert. How could they send a skyscraping realm cultivator? The divine realm experts present had become faint. They had expected a savior, but instead they got a skyscraping realm cultivator. Who's He Yuan, Master He? Jian Wushuang stood in front of this group of experts, and he looked around indifferently. He Yun's face had turned pale, his heart sunk. After hearing Jian Wushuang's words, he answered in a weak voice. I am. Chapter 685 Savior. Chapter 685 Savior. My name is Jian Wushuang and I have been tasked with killing Bing Ji for you, Jian Wushuang declared. Oh. He Yun nodded his head, obviously a little underwhelmed. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang couldn't stop his face becoming darker. He couldn't help but notice the look of despair on the faces of the people looking back at him. These people don't take me seriously because I'm a skyscraping realm cultivator. But they're right. After all, I need to kill an advanced divine realm expert. It's hard to imagine a skyscraping realm cultivator slaying an advanced divine realm expert, so it's understandable that they have little faith. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. At this moment, a novice divine realm expert in the crowd took one look at Jian Wushuang and curled his lips, then muttered, He's merely at the skyscraping realm, but takes slaying Bing Ji so flippantly. It seems disciples from the ancient sect aren't quite what we thought. Unfortunate, I had high hopes for the ancient sect, but it would seem the ancient sect is just SOSO. The voice of the novice divine realm expert was little more than a whisper, but still Jian Wushuang heard what he said. Instantly, the look in Jian Wushuang's eyes turned to a steely gaze as the essence of the sword became obvious. Boom! The essence of the sword suddenly seemed to envelop the whole world, and it was as though time stood still. What is it? Such a terrible essence. It's just too strong. I've seen a top divine realm expert, knowledgeable in sword principle, display his skills, though even his essence wasn't as violent as this. The divine realm experts, who had almost felt hopeless, suddenly began to take notice, shocked. They could feel the obvious power held by this sword. The novice divine realm expert who had spoken so freely earlier now had a look of terror on his face. His eyes full of fear as he stared at Jian Wushuang. Frozen in place, he dared not move for fear that this young man in front of him, whom he had so underestimated, would kill him in an instant. He now had no doubt that the person stood in front of him possessed the ability to kill him with little effort. But clearly this man was merely a skyscraping realm cultivator. He didn't know Jian Wushuang was just at the skyscraping realm, but the latter had not only created Sword Heart but completely consolidated his ability at the first level of Sword Heart through 6 years of meditation in Sword Mountain. This made Jian Wushuang stronger than many Eternal Realm experts who specialized in sword principle. The power and essence contained within his sword could easily slay novice Divine Realm experts, and even intermediate Divine Realm experts. I have come to complete a task. If you don't cooperate, you too will suffer the consequences. Jian Wushuang's voice became cold. Misunderstanding. This is a mere misunderstanding, Lord. He Yun immediately changed his attitude, and even his tone had become humble and respectful. From what Jian Wushuang had just displayed, he could see that Jian Wushuang retained battle strength far beyond that of an ordinary skyscraping realm cultivator. His strength at the very least was more than his own and possibly even much stronger. Hope among the other Divine Realm experts had been rekindled. Lord, how will you deal with Bing Ji? He Yun asked in a low voice. That's none of your business. I have my own way of killing him. Jian Wushuang didn't bother to engage in small talk. Fine. He Yun nodded. Bing Ji gave the few families here a day to prepare divine gems. Barring a miracle, he will be here tomorrow to kill us all. Please take this opportunity to kill him, Lord. There is no need to wait until tomorrow. Take me to see him today. Jian Wushuang ordered. On the way, he had carefully studied the information he had on the 11 divine experts who he would kill. He had paid special attention to who, the strongest among them, for he was confident of killing the others with ease. Furthermore, he only had 2 months and a lot of time would be used up just finding these Divine Realm experts. Therefore he had no time to waste. Today, Yun was shocked. After contemplating this request, he nodded in agreement. Okay, Lord, follow me please. With that, he led Jian Wushuang to where Bingji was. The experts from the other families glanced at each other before following them. Before long, Yun and Jian Wushuang were in front of a towering building. The building was once home to the largest shop in Danyang City, but now it was occupied solely by Bingji. Bingji and his underlings gathered here regularly. Lord, Bingji is right in this building. It was obvious that Yun was a little nervous. Jian Wushuang nodded. He had noticed a strong aura coming from inside the building, which he knew must belong to Bingji. Master He, I assume you have thought it through and are here today to give our Lord the divine gems. A sneering voice was heard, and with that, some figures flew out of the building, headed by a middle-aged man with an evil scowl and a grim smile spread across his face. His aura made it known that he was an intermediate divine realm expert. This is Yuan Qian, an expert serving under Bingji. Many years ago he had a falling out with the He family. He was then hunted by my family and fled to other cities. Now he is the strongest among the divine realm experts serving under Bingji. Yun whispered into Jian Wushuang's ears. Oh, Jian Wushuang replied nonchalantly. It was clear he didn't take this intermediate divine realm expert seriously. Jian Wushuang, an ancient sect disciple, comes to slay Bingji under orders. Jian Wushuang spoke clearly and his voice thundered throughout the whole of Danyang City. What did you say? Upon hearing this, the expressions of Yuan Qian and the divine realm experts serving under Bingji changed. An ancient sect disciple. Yuan Qian looked at Jian Wushuang intensely. But when he perceived Jian Wushuang's aura was merely at the skyscraping realm, his expression lightened. Ha ha ha, Yuan Qian laughed as though he had just heard the best joke in the world. He stared at Jian Wushuang with a hint of ridicule in the eyes. Boy, what did you just say? Did you say you're here under orders to kill our Lord? Am I hearing this correctly? Boy, repeat what you have just said. The Bingji underlings all looked at Jian Wushuang as if they were looking at a fool. The presence of an ancient sect disciple was indeed a big deal, and certainly something for them to worry about. But this ancient sect disciple in front of them was merely a skyscraping realm cultivator. This skyscraping realm cultivator had threatened to kill their Lord Bingji, an advanced divine realm expert. Surely this was a joke. However, it was obvious that Jian Wushuang was not one inclined to repeat himself. The emperor's sword was already in his hand, and he began to wave his weapon. Chapter 686 Fighting against an advanced divine realm expert. Chapter 686 Fighting against an advanced divine realm expert. There was a huge gap between the different levels of divine realm experts. An intermediate divine realm expert was at least 10 times stronger than a novice divine realm expert, and the gap between a skyscraping realm expert and a divine realm expert was even greater. Everyone present were at least divine realm experts, and Yuan Qian was an intermediate divine realm expert. Why would he be concerned about Jian Wushuang, a skyscraping realm cultivator? When he saw Jian Wushuang wield the sword, he laughed dismissively. You must have a death wish. But when Jian Wushuang's sword was used correctly, the beautiful sword made people feel intoxicated with even its most basic movements. This sword seemed as though it was flawless. As Yuan Qian watched the fluid movements of the sword, he was surprised. It would seem the swordsmanship of this skyscraping realm cultivator is quite good. Though he was surprised, Yuan Qian still didn't care about Jian Wushuang. It wasn't until he came face to face with the power of this majestic sword. What? Yuan Qian was stunned. He found that when under attack from the sword, he had no room to dodge. He quickly waved his palms and using his spiritual power, he enlarged his palms which then patted the shadow of the sword. But it was no match. The cold sword edge cut straight through his palm like cutting tofu and continued cutting into his body with ferocious power and pierced through his entire body. Then with all eyes watching in astonishment, Yuan Qian's figure fell weakly to the ground. Yuan Qian, an intermediate divine realm expert, was killed by a single move. With the sword in his hand, Jian Wushuang stood in the air. The edge of the long sword coldly emitted a slight purple glow, with blood dripping slowly. Jian Wushuang didn't even glance at Yuan Qian, but looked at the towering building ahead as his thundering roar suddenly sounded. Bingji, come and face death. 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 Jian Wushuang's voice echoed throughout the whole Danyang city, frightening numerous warriors. Bingji, who had been inside the building, could no longer sit still. Moving quickly, he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Bingji was a cold and calculating man with piercing eyes. Dressed in a black robe, he stared at Jian Wushuang, with a hint of horror in his eyes. Although he had stayed inside the building, he had been watching everything that had happened outside. At first he did not take Jian Wushuang seriously, but seeing how Jian Wushuang killed Yuan Qian made him feel nervous. Such swift movement. Yuan Qian is at least an intermediate divine realm expert, but was killed by a single blow. It was partly because of Yuan Qian underestimating his enemy, but his adversary would not be able to strike so swiftly without superior strength. His knowledge of word principle is extensive. Although he is merely at the skyscraping realm, his battle strength is comparable to that of an intermediate divine realm expert, and even at their peak. This was Bingji's assessment of Jian Wushuang's strength. A disciple of the ancient sect. Bingji's pupils shrunk. No sooner have I arrived in Danyang City than I was targeted by the ancient sect. It seems that I must flee. Otherwise, this time they just sent a skyscraping realm disciple. It's irrelevant how strong he is, for his ability is limited, but next time they may send advanced divine realm experts, or worse yet, a superior divine realm expert to hunt down me. Bingji had decided. He had already benefited handsomely during his time in Danyang City, and he felt there was little to gain by staying here, so he had no intention of fighting with Jian Wushuang. Unless necessary, he had no intention of killing any disciples of the ancient sect, let alone a disciple with such excellent sword principle. Leave. Without hesitation, Bingji retreated. He Yun and the others were shocked by what they were seeing. They were sure that Bingji would be so angry that he wouldn't hesitate to fight and even kill Jian Wushuang. But when Bingji showed up, he instead ran away. But what Jian Wushuang did next surprised them even more. You won't escape anymore. Jian Wushuang spoke menacingly. Just then his figure had turned into a phantom, and he chased Bingji so fast that he appeared behind him almost immediately. His speed. Realizing that Jian Wushuang was behind him, Bingji's heart sunk. Even though it was clear that Jian Wushuang was merely at the skyscraping realm, he was actually faster than Bingji. Admittedly, he was not specialized in speed, but even still, a skyscraping realm cultivator should not be able to catch up with him. When Jian Wushuang appeared, the essence of his sword exploded. As Jian Wushuang waved his hand, the shadow of a sword moving as quick as lightning cut into him. Bastard! The reason I fled was that I have no desire to fall out with the ancient sect. Do you really think I would be afraid of you, a skyscraping realm nonentity? With a roar, Bingji cast a glance at Jian Wushuang. He waved his sleeve. Then an enormous energy swept out, and a statue of a khaki giant, 30 feet tall, suddenly emerged in front of Jian Wushuang. The khaki giant yelled to the sky, then waved his fist, full of energy, and directed it at Wushuang. The khaki giant was merely a product of Bingji's energy. It was by no means a superb technique, and the giant wasn't strong. Attack! With a yell, Jian Wushuang slashed relentlessly with the emperor's sword. Almost splitting the khaki giant in half with overwhelming force, he then turned the sword toward Bingji with violent intentions. What? Bingji's face suddenly looked worried. For a long time now, what he had just displayed was enough to defeat even those that were top intermediate divine realm experts. But Jian Wushuang bettered it with a single blow from his sword. This made Bingji realize that Jian Wushuang's strength might be that of advanced intermediate divine realm. Humph! With a cold contemplation, Bingji didn't dare to take any more chances. With a turn of his wrist, a saber appeared in his hand. The saber was mercilessly set upon the light from Jian Wushuang's sword, and at the same time, Bingji's palm holding the saber doubled in size, thus increasing the saber's power. Battle commenced. Bang! After a thud, Jian Wushuang took a small step back. But Bingji was completely knocked off his stride. When he regained his balance, Bingji looked dumbstruck. How can this be possible? I, a grand advanced divine realm expert, was forced to use my divine weapon and secret skills, including my strongest secret skill, the Thousand Apes Hand, to fight against a skyscraping realm cultivator, and it is I that must retreat. Exactly how strong is he? Chapter 687 Slaughter. Chapter 687 Slaughter. This confrontation had left Bingji frightened. The strength Jian Wuxiang possessed was clearly beyond that of the skyscraping realm and made him, an advanced divine realm expert, very worried. Die! A sudden cry reverberated through heaven and earth as Jian Wuxiang moved rapidly, and once more appeared in front of Bingji. With an obvious intent to kill, Jian Wuxiang struck violently with the emperor's sword. Boy, don't be too arrogant. There was anger in Bingji's eyes. He yelled out as his palm, holding the saber, grew drastically once more. Its size and its power, which had previously doubled, now quintupled. The strength being generated obviously quintupled, too. Until now, quintuple strength was his limit. Skybearing skill. His face turned red as his spiritual power reached a new extreme and he attacked using the saber. This attack was the strongest strike in his arsenal, and used up all his strength. The void seemed to be cut open, and the power of the blade rushed forward with extreme force. The force was so strong that Jian Wuxiang couldn't help looking sideways, but a sneer appeared across his mouth. The sword heart, which had already become essence of his consciousness, was slightly shaken, and 70% of the sword heart power activated. Sword heart was capable of generating attacking power as sword soul. But the power achieved with sword heart was much stronger than that achieved with sword soul. Just 70% of sword heart power would be enough to make the power of Jian Wuxiang strike to multiply by as much as 10 times. Bang! As the opponent's attacks collided, the winner of the confrontation appeared. Disaster! The light of the sword light broke out and the waves spread. Bingji's palm holding the saber tightly suddenly shook and his hand broke as his whole body fell backwards as though he had been hit by a cannonball. This. Bingji was stunned. He had never thought a day would come when a mere skyscraping realm cultivator could outclass him. In fact, Jian Wuxiang had spent the 6 years in Sword Mountain focusing on sword principle, but he had also made improvements on his physical form by virtue of some natural treasures. He had been studying the bone fusion technique of the immortality secret skill before, but now he had completed stage 1 of the blood condensation technique. Although it was only the first stage, his body had become significantly stronger. The combination of the spiritual power given by heavenly creation skill and his increased physical strength meant that he could compete with an average divine realm expert now in strength alone. As for his understanding of Tao, he was at the same level as Bingji and possibly even stronger. Bingji was more skilled than Jian Wuxiang when using those secret skills which increased his strength. When his palm grew just now, the power exploded 5 times stronger than usual. Jian Wuxiang was not qualified to practice such kind of secret skills now, but his sword heart had reached level 1. Once activated, only 70% of it was enough to increase his attacking ability tenfold. In a situation where both opponents were almost the same in all other aspects, one's strength was multiplied by 5 while the other's strength was improved tenfold, creating a huge gap. Hence, Jian Wuxiang could easily outclass Bingji even if he battled him head-on. Bingji couldn't fight against Jian Wuxiang, and he had no hope of defeating him in any other aspects. Escape! Bingji no longer had the courage to fight Jian Wuxiang, and fled hastily. Of course, Jian Wuxiang did his best to hunt him down. In terms of the life-saving ability, Bingji was not strong, so he couldn't escape quickly, making it easy for Jian Wuxiang to hunt him. When Jian Wuxiang displayed his swordsmanship, Bingji fought back relentlessly, but in the end he was defeated. Above Danyang City, the divine realm experts from the families, who had been watching all this, gasped when they saw Bingji attempting to flee, and were even more shocked to see Bingji's lifeless corpse fall to the ground. Although they were aware of Jian Wuxiang's unusual strength, none of them thought he could kill Bingji with his strength alone when he arrived. However, not only did Jian Wuxiang kill Bingji, but the battle had been so one-sided. Bing Ji, who had been too strong for all Divine Realm experts present to defeat, couldn't fight against Jian Wushuang. The gap had been too big. This is an ancient sect disciple. The legendary ancient sect disciple is actually quite exceptional. A skyscraping realm cultivator killed an advanced Divine Realm expert head-on. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never believe it. The Divine Realm experts all marveled at it. After this incident, they had a newfound respect for the ancient sect. At that moment, Jian Wushuang, who had put Bing Ji's corpse into his interspatial ring, turned to look at He Yun, informing him, "My task was only to kill Bing Ji. As for those people serving under him, you can deal with them yourself." Then he turned to leave. As for those remaining Divine Realm experts that served under Bing Ji, without Bing Ji, who was an advanced Divine Realm expert, and Yuan Qian, who had been killed by Jian Wushuang, they posed no threat, but the families had no intention of letting them go. In the end, save for 2 very lucky Divine Realm experts that managed to escape, all the others were killed by these families. Soon harmony returned to Danyang City once more. Of course, the fate of Danyang City had nothing to do with Jian Wushuang. He was only responsible for killing Bing Ji. After the mission was completed, he left and set off to the location of the second target of his mission. Next target, Chu Nan, a top intermediate Divine Realm expert. Jian Wushuang studied a mountain below. According to his information, Chu Nan was hiding in that mountain. Without any hesitation, Jian Wushuang dived toward the mountain. The advanced Divine Realm expert Bing Ji was killed by Jian Wushuang and had no opportunity to flee. An intermediate Divine Realm expert would not pose much of a threat. Soon Jian Wushuang flew out of the mountain, and Chu Nan, who had been killed, was put in his interspatial ring. Next, Jian Wushuang went toward his third target, slaughter. Jian Wushuang was on a mission of slaughter. Jian Wushuang had known the 11 targets' locations, so it only took him some time to easily find them and directly kill them. Chapter 688, Exchanging Divine Gems. Chapter 688, Exchanging Divine Gems. As time went by, there was only half a month left before the deadline passed. Jian Wushuang had already killed 10 of his 11 targets. The last one was the strongest, so Jian Wushuang deliberately left this one till last. Is that Hu's castle? Jian Wushuang stood with his arms crossed, overlooking the castle built from amethyst in front of him. This large castle was famous in the surrounding territory. Many of the warriors in the surrounding territory knew that this was the residence of a Divine Realm expert of great strength, Hu. Hu had lived in the castle for many years, and his fame had spread far and wide. He was very clever. He knew that this territory was ruled by ancient sect, and he would be targeted and killed by ancient sect if he committed a crime here. Therefore, although he had been overbearing to the weak, he had never violated the rules of ancient sect. Over the years, he has lived peacefully and had never come into conflict with the ancient sect. Not long ago, however, ancient sect discovered that 1,000 years ago, Hu cooperated with another expert and killed an ancient sect disciple for a treasure. No one witnessed how they killed the ancient sect disciple, and they had covered it up well. Thus, ancient sect had never connected him with the disciple's death for the past 1,000 years. However, the expert who cooperated with Hu was caught by the ancient sect, and he revealed everything to save his life. On the surface, he's respectful toward ancient sect and never violates ancient sect's rules, but he actually dares to kill our disciple. This Divine Realm expert is really smart. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Among his 11 targets, 10 had committed severe crimes within the territory ruled by ancient sect. Ancient sect set them as targets because it didn't want too many conflicts within its territory. But the case with Hu was different. What Hu had done was unforgivable. He dared to kill an ancient sect disciple. Therefore, he must die. Although Hu is the most important one, it will not be easy to kill him, Jian Wushuang thought. Based on the information he received, although Hu was only an advanced Divine Realm expert, he was definitely one of great strength. He was much stronger than Bing Yi and other advanced Divine Realm experts killed by Jian Wushuang. In addition, as he had lived longer, he would certainly have more skills or trump cards to save his life. Anyway, I will go say hello to him first. I heard that Hu enjoys a leisurely lifestyle. Jian Wushuang smiled, heading directly toward the castle. In the innermost area of the huge amethyst castle, there was a grand hall. A middle-aged man with bare feet and loose robe which showed his abdominal muscles was lying comfortably on a crystal bed. 2 beautiful maids were serving him, and many beautiful maids were dancing in the center of the hall. Except for these maids, he was the only one in the whole hall. With a pleasant look on his ruddy face, he was enjoying a drink. This man was Hu. As Jian Wushuang said, he did lead a life of leisure. He had become an advanced divine realm expert long ago, so he had become a local tyrant in the surrounding territory. No one dared to challenge him. He only needed to be cautious and not to violate ancient sect's rules. Although he secretly broke some of the rules, he had covered them up so well that no one had ever accused him of anything. While Hu was enjoying himself, a servant outside the hall rushed in, knelt down and spoke respectfully, "My lord, a man with an ancient sect inner disciple token came and asked to see you." Ancient sect inner disciple? Hu was a little surprised and his face immediately turned pale. He waved his hand to indicate the maids in the hall to leave. I have always respected ancient sect and never violated any of its rules. In addition, I seldom have contact with people in ancient sect. Why would an ancient sect disciple come to visit me? Hu frowned and thought, has ancient sect discovered what I did? He had committed far more than one crime in secret, but he had gotten away with it so far. Did the ancient sect disciple give his name? Hu asked. No, replied the servant, then he shook his head as he said, I can tell that he's just a skyscraping realm expert. Skyscraping realm? Hu was a little surprised and then relaxed. It seems that he's not coming to bother me, as a skyscraping realm expert is not qualified to do so. However, he is still an inner disciple of ancient sect. I'd better not to offend him. Go, ask him to come in, Hu said. Yes, said the servant, and he left immediately. Hu stood up and straightened his robe. Before long the servant led Jian Wushuang to the hall. You can leave now, Hu told the servant, waving a hand. The servant bowed and excused himself. Only Hu and Jian Wushuang stood in the hall. Hu looked at Jian Wushuang and noticed his aura indicating that he was indeed a skyscraping realm expert. Haha, little brother. How should I address you? What can I do for you? Hu said quite enthusiastically. My name is Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang answered indifferently. I happened to pass by the surrounding territory and wanted to buy some treasures. Unfortunately, I've run out of divine gems, so I came to exchange something for divine gems with you. Exchange divine gems? Hu was surprised, but he did not doubt his words. It was common for warriors to exchange treasures for divine gems while on their adventures. However, the treasures were often so valuable or rare that it was not worth exchanging them in the stores, so the warriors would exchange with experts who had sufficient divine gems. Jian Wushuang is an inner disciple of ancient sect, so he doesn't worry about what I may do to him. Hu smiled slightly and then asked, my friend, what treasure do you want to exchange for divine gems? This one, Jian Wushuang produced a black gem. Chapter 689 Sneak Attack. Chapter 689 Sneak Attack. This black gem appeared ordinary and did not shine with luster. However, it gave off an extremely strong killing intent, which was an indication of its extraordinary origin. Jian Wushuang obtained it from a divine realm expert who he had killed. He had no idea what it was exactly, but he did feel that this was something special. What is it? Hu observed the black gem from a distance of 10 meters. He could see that it was extraordinary, but he could not tell its origin from such a distance. Let me have a closer look at the gem, Hu said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded, slowly stepping forward with the black gem in his hand, came to a stop when he was less than a meter away from Hu. This gem, Hu leaned forward and stared at this black gem intensely. It has rich killing intent. Is this the legendary soldier killing gem? Hu focused all his attention on the black gem, not taking the slightest precautions against Jian Wushuang. The time is right. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled with killing intent. The next moment a cold sword shadow burst out with the suddenness of a thunderbolt. The movement of the sword was extremely fast. And too sudden. Although Hu was cautious by nature, it was obvious that he did not consider Jian Wushuang any form of threat, as he was just a skyscraping realm expert. In addition, he had been distracted by the black gem, so the sudden sword stroke of Jian Wushuang had completely caught him off guard. What? Even though Hu was rich in combat experience, he was still startled by such a close sword stroke. His eyes were wide open and the hair on his back of neck stood up. In this life-and-death situation, he used all his experience and with great difficulty moved his body slightly. This move meant he avoided being attacked at any vital body parts. However, the long sword still struck Hu on his shoulder. The sharp emperor sword cut through his strong body, which had been enhanced by body reshaping techniques, as easily as cutting through a piece of paper. The long sword cut straight into Hu's shoulder and nearly cut off half of his arm before it came to a stop. Bastard! Hu shouted like a raging lion. Mighty spiritual power surged along his remaining good arm and then to his palm, which was like a huge fan, and slapped toward Jian Wushuang's head with extreme force. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and moved his body in a weird way to avoid Hu's palm comfortably. At the same time, Hu had stepped backward to create a distance between the two. In the hall they stood there facing each other. Jian Wushuang, holding his emperor sword, coldly stared at Hu. Hu's half-arm hung loosely. A lot of blood gushed from the wound and dripped onto the ground. He stared at Jian Wushuang, with his face turning purple and his eyes full of anger. Boy, what a devious move! Hu growled. Devious? Jian Wushuang sneered. In this world, everyone lives by the law of the jungle. How can you say I'm devious? Also, you were quite devious yourself when you cooperated with an expert and killed the ancient sect disciple, were you not? Hearing these words, Hu was surprised, but then a cold smile appeared on his face. It seems that ancient sect has discovered my secret, but it's so stupid to send a skyscraping realm bug to attempt to kill me. You will die today. I will die. I don't think so. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. He stopped talking with Hu and rushed forward with speed. As soon as he appeared in front of Hu, he waved his emperor sword and attacked him. With this single move, countless sword shadows seemed to burst out in an instant. He had exerted about 7/10 of the power of the sword heart in his sea of consciousness. Humph, ridiculous! Hu snorted as a red cloud burst out from his body. This secret skill could greatly increase his strength. At the same time, he turned over his remaining good hand, and in it appeared a double-edged giant axe. The huge axe seemed to weigh at least 1,000 pounds, but Hu held it as though he was holding a feather. He then launched the axe forward. It carried such force with it, that it even created a fierce blast in the air. Jian Wushuang's sword slashed its way toward it. Bang! When the two collided, Jian Wushuang even found himself struggling to remain upright. This guy even has a lot of power in his left arm. Jian Wushuang frowned. His strength at this moment was at the same level as when he killed Bing Ji. He completely crushed Bing Ji, who was in his prime when they had fought. However, he drew with who only had the use of his left arm, his weaker arm. Jian Wushuang was a little surprised, but Hu was really astonished. My right arm was wounded, but my left arm has not suffered any injuries. But still, my full attack has been parried by this guy of skyscraping realm? Hu glared at Jian Wushuang with a shocked look on his face. He knew in that instant that Jian Wushuang was at least as strong as an advanced divine realm expert. That boy! He dared not to underestimate Jian Wushuang any longer. The red cloud exuding from him became even heavier and formed a red crystal armor to shield him. Hu's aura began to rise. This secret skill, Jian Wushuang observed the red armor surrounding Hu with a serious look. He could tell that Hu was using some secret skill which could multiply his power in a short period of time. It was the same as the Thousand Apes hand used by Bing Ji. However, as Bing Ji was just an ordinary advanced divine realm expert, it only enhanced his offensive power 5 times. Even though Hu had not started his attack yet, Jian Wushuang could see that Hu had cultivated the highest level of his secret skill, and could definitely increase his offensive power 8 times or even 10 times. Moreover, Hu's comprehension of Tao was definitely more in-depth than that of Bing Ji. He definitely ranked high among the advanced divine realm experts if he revealed his true strength. Fortunately, I chose to start with a sneak attack and cut his right arm so that he could not go all out, otherwise. Before Jian Wushuang could finish his thought, he suddenly saw that Hu swallowed an elixir in front of him. Chapter 690, Hu's Real Strength. Chapter 690. Hu's Real Strength. What? Jian Wushuang looked at Hu in astonishment. After Hu swallowed the elixir, the huge wound on his right arm began to recover at a speed visible to a naked eye. His right arm recovered completely in a moment. How could this be possible? Jian Wushuang's face darkened. Hu waved his right arm slowly for a while and a smile appeared on his face. Fortunately, I've collected many treasures these years. The elixir which can heal my injury immediately is extremely precious, but I happen to have one. Hu grinned, staring at Jian Wushuang. You're an ancient sect disciple and a real genius. As a skyscraping realm expert, you possess the strength of an advanced divine realm expert. If you die, I guess the ancient sect will feel extreme loss and pain. Jian Wushuang sneered. Hu, you should know that you'll be the one to die today. Really? Let's see who'll be left standing. As soon as Hu finished his words, he turned into a red shadow and approached Jian Wushuang quickly. With vast spiritual power bursting out from him continuously, he changed the axe to his right hand and hacked toward Jian Wushuang. The sky immediately darkened. Jian Wushuang felt that he was directly suppressed by a horrifying force, which was obviously stronger than that of the 10 divine realm experts he killed before. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up as bright as lightning. He raised the emperor sword high with both hands, soaring sword ascent spreading from the sword. Violet Calamity Sword Skill. Jian Wushuang shouted and swung the emperor sword which was held high up, furiously. A bright purple light appeared suddenly, which instantly overshadowed all the other lights in the area. This beautiful sword stroke contained a terrifying aura. Violet Calamity Sword Skill, which was modified from the Violet Star Destroying Sword Skill, was created by Jian Wushuang, and had even greater power. It was a rank 4 superior secret skill. The beautiful sword light met with the violent axe shadow of Hu. The moment they collided, the result was decided in an instant. What? Jian Wushuang watched in shock how his strongest move was directly crushed by the violent axe shadow. After the collision, the residual force of the axe shadow swept toward him. Humph! Jian Wushuang gave a grunt as he was knocked backward. Kid, go to hell! Jian Wushuang heard an angry shout from the top of his head. As soon as he raised his head, he found a huge and furious axe shadow above him which brought him tremendous pressure. He immediately lifted his long sword to block it. Bang! With a loud boom, Jian Wushuang was knocked to the ground so forcefully that a huge deep pit was left at the point of impact and even the whole castle sank. Is he dead? Hu stood in the void with a cold expression, overlooking the huge pit below. Right at this moment, the gravel in the huge pit shifted, followed by a figure that dashed out of the huge pit and appeared in front of Hu. Humph! Hu looked at Jian Wushuang with a cold expression and said, Boy, you do have a strong body. Hu. Jian Wushuang stared at Hu and said in a deep voice, I underestimated you, and so has everyone, including the ancient sect. We thought you were at most an advanced divine realm at the top level. No one had expected that you had become a superior divine realm expert. Superior divine realm? Hu smiled noncommittally and said, Though I'm not extremely talented, I'm not a trash without any talent. I've stayed at the advanced divine realm for so many years. Is it strange that I've broken through and entered the level of superior divine realm? I just rarely show my full strength in front of others. Boy, you should feel lucky that you can see my real strength. Lucky? Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and smiled at the same time. You're right. I really should be lucky to meet you. Otherwise, the task I received wouldn't be challenging at all. What do you mean? Hu's expression darkened slightly. As he had already shown his strength as a superior divine realm expert, Jian Wushuang should have been frightened. Nevertheless, Jian Wushuang turned out to be excited instead. Hu Hu could see clearly the excitement in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Hu Hu. Jian Wushuang looked at Hu Hu with excitement. My mission this time is to kill 11 Divine Realm experts, including 6 medium Divine Realm experts and 5 advanced Divine Realm experts. Before I came here, I've already killed other 10 experts. However, they were too weak to force me to exert all my strength. Fortunately, my last goal is you, a superior Divine Realm expert. I've cultivated in seclusion for 6 years. Now I will use you to test my progress over the past 6 years. A mighty battle intent spread from Jian Wushuang and soared straight into the air. Use me to test your progress over the past 6 years? How arrogant! Hu Hu flew into a rage. Enough talk. Let's fight. Jian Wushuang licked his lips and his eyes sparkled. The next moment he rushed forward. Swoosh! A strange figure suddenly appeared beside Hu Hu. So fast. Hu Hu was shocked at Jian Wushuang's speed. Jian Wushuang drew his sword out. Swoosh! 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 Sword shadows burst out one after another at amazing speed. The condensed sword heart in Jian Wushuang's sea of consciousness was shaking violently as its power reached its extreme. When Jian Wushuang fought with Divine Realm experts like Bing Ji before or with Hu Hu just now, he only used 70% of the sword heart's power. But now he brought forth its power to full effect. That meant Jian Wushuang was using all his strength. At the same time, with only a thought, the Emperor's sword in his hand released terrible killing intent which swept around. An eternal weapon. Hu Hu was taken aback greatly. When Jian Wushuang fought with him before, he had not used the power of Emperor's sword. Emperor's sword, as an eternal weapon, had much more power than those divine weapons. By virtue of the power of the eternal weapon, the overall strength of Jian Wushuang had been greatly enhanced. Chapter 691 Fighting. Chapter 691 Fighting. As Jian Wushuang exerted all the power of Sword Heart and Emperor's Sword, his strength had reached a new height. At the same time, he brought forth his swordsmanship fully. Numerous sword shadows completely suppressed Hu Hu, making him feel as if he had fallen into a sword sea and was surrounded by sword shadows. Red clouds surged from the red crystal armor of Hu Hu and vast power gathered in his hands. He swung his double-edged giant axe and hacked toward Jian Wushuang continuously. Clang! 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 There were consecutive clashes of metal on metal, which were so deep and powerful that the whole hall trembled. Jian Wushuang completely unleashed his swordsmanship, which was simple, pure, neat and almost flawless. His sword strokes were so fast that Hu Hu could do nothing but parry them with difficulty. Get out of my way! Hu Hu shouted and then hacked his giant axe violently. A huge axe shadow of nearly 100 meters appeared in the hall instantly. The power of this axe shadow was suffocating, and the air seemed to be shuddering. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. Violet Calamity Sword Skill. He shouted and operated the strongest move which he had created. He had used this move before, but he had withheld his strength and only used 70% of sword heart power at that time. He gave it everything this time. It was a head-on confrontation. A beautiful purple light suddenly lit up, and then collided with the towering axe shadow which was 100 meters high. With a loud sound, the entire hall was violently trembling. Jian Wushuang, who fell into an energy storm, darkened his face as he felt an extraordinary force coming along his arm and knocking him backward. He's a superior Divine Realm expert indeed. I've tried my best and exerted all my power, but I still can't compete with him. Jian Wushuang sighed but was not discouraged by it. He was prepared for the fact that a superior Divine Realm expert was much stronger than an advanced Divine Realm expert. Since I can't play hardball, I'll kill him using my skills in swordsmanship, Jian Wushuang thought. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled. He suddenly flashed and appeared behind Hu Hu, his sharp sword stabbing at Hu Hu's throat directly. Hu Hu counterattacked with his axe. The overwhelming axe shadow split the entire hall ground apart, but it did not touch even the corner of Jian Wushuang's clothes. On the contrary, Jian Wushuang's sword stroke, which originally aimed at Hu Hu's throat, swung sidewards and brushed over Hu Hu's shoulder like a ghost, leaving a sword scar. You should die. Hu Hu's eyes were burning with anger. He continued to chop with his axe, trying to kill Jian Wushuang. But Jian Wushuang kept dodging quickly in the hall. As he enhanced his speed to its extreme, he was as fast as a fish in water, trying his best to avoid direct collisions with Hu Hu. Instead, he used his more delicate swordsmanship to force Hu Hu to resist his attacks frantically. Jian Wushuang's sword shadows, including straight slashes, sweeps, or sudden withdrawal, seemed simple but were actually delicate. They suppressed Hu Hu perfectly, making him unable to swing his giant axe to counterattack. Some unexpected sword shadows even brought a lot of harm to Hu Hu. Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was too profound. Compared with Jian Wushuang, Hu Hu's axe skills were extremely rigid and he was not as flexible as Jian Wushuang. Facing Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship, Hu Hu had nothing but brute force which he could not use to his full advantage. Boy, do you dare to face me directly, you're a coward if you hide all the time. Hu Hu growled in anxiety and anger. Are you joking? You're a superior divine realm expert, while I'm just at the skyscraping realm. Do you expect me to compare force with you? Jian Wushuang sneered. He was not a fool. Since he knew he could not win in the head-on confrontation, he would certainly stop fighting in this way. In addition, after 6 years of cultivation in the Sword Mountain, he had made biggest progress in sword principle cultivation and swordsmanship, which became his greatest advantage. He naturally wanted to use this. In the hall, the collisions between the two continued, but it was obvious that Hu Hu had been completely suppressed by Jian Wushuang. Bastard, bastard! Hu Hu was angry, and he was almost driven crazy by Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship. On the contrary, Jian Wushuang felt excited and delighted. Good. This feels so good. In the past 6 years, he had been cultivating in seclusion. Though his swordsmanship was extremely powerful, he had no chance to practice it. He had killed the 10 Divine Realm experts, including 4 advanced Divine Realm experts, but it could barely be counted as a challenge for him. He did not need to use his full strength to kill those 10 Divine Realm experts. They were not qualified to make him go all out. Until he met Hu Hu. In the face of a superior Divine Realm expert, he could finally go all out, including using his swordsmanship. The fight swept away the boredom of his 6 years of cultivation. Bang! After another collision, Jian Wushuang finally stepped backward to generate a distance between the two. Rat! Hu Hu stared at Jian Wushuang with freezing and gloomy eyes. He felt stuck in the fierce battle, as he could not use his force at all. After all, Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was too overwhelming and profound. How can a skyscraping realm expert's swordsmanship be so terrifying? Hu Hu felt awestruck. At this time, Jian Wushuang looked up at Hu Hu. Hu Hu, I enjoyed the fight with you. But let's end this, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Hu Hu's expression changed slightly. Didn't you complain that I did not dare fight you directly just now? Now I'll do as you wish, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. Hu Hu looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Just now Jian Wushuang had gained the upper hand due to his exquisite swordsmanship. However, if they had a head-on confrontation and competed for power, Hu Hu was much better than Jian Wushuang. And now Jian Wushuang was willing to give up his advantage to have a direct confrontation with Hu Hu. Are you ready? A solemn look appeared on Jian Wushuang's face. The emperor sword in his hand also trembled furiously at this moment. Chapter 692 Annihilation Sword Move. Chapter 692 Annihilation Sword Move. Are you really going to play hardball? Hu Hu's eyes sparkled with a hint of pleasure. Though Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was exquisite, Hu Hu was confident in his own power as a superior divine realm expert. Boy, since you want to die, I'll help you fulfill your wish. As soon as Hu Hu finished his words, red clouds burst out from his body and vast power surged crazily toward his hands. After he exerted his secret skill's power, he lifted the axe high with both hands. Jian Wushuang also raised his emperor sword while a mighty sword essence burst out from him. Last stroke. I've comprehended this sword move for a long time, but I've never used it in battle before. You're the first to see it. Jian Wushuang stared at Hu Hu while mighty power accumulated in the emperor sword, and his sword essence became stronger and stronger. When the sword essence had accumulated to its peak, a shocking light burst out from Jian Wushuang's eyes. The first move of the Boundless Heaven sword art. Annihilation sword move. Jian Wushuang shouted and then directly swung the emperor sword whose power had reached its peak. Boom! The air was separated immediately, and the whole castle trembled at this moment. The sword shadow left a huge sword scar on the ground which was so wide and deep that no one could see the bottom of it. The sword stroke could destroy the whole world. It was the first move of the Boundless Heaven sword art. Jian Wushuang comprehended this sword move 3 years ago. He had kept it as a trump card and had never displayed it in front of anyone. Until this moment. Hu Hu slashed with his giant axe simultaneously. The slash was so powerful that it seemed that it could cut through mountains. The huge axe shadow carried mighty power, ready to destroy everything in the world. Hu Hu's face turned scarlet and his eyes were full of madness. Obviously, this axe stroke was the strongest one he was able to display. Both of them operated their strongest move and the two overwhelming attacks collided with each other. Bang! With the loud boom, huge ripples of energy swept around violently in the void where the collision happened, destroying everything around. In the hall, decorations, wine pots, wine cups, tables and chairs, and even stone walls were crushed into dust by the ripples which were rapidly spreading. If someone watched from the outside, he would find that a horrifying power had erupted at the core of the huge amethyst castle. Then the whole castle began to collapse from the core at an alarming speed. Boom! The whole world seemed to be shaking. The shaking lasted for dozens of breaths and finally everything calmed down. The amethyst castle which had stood for thousands of years had disappeared, leaving only ruins and dust all over the place. In the middle of the ruins a man was standing there, Jian Wushuang. His face was a little pale, and there was a trace of blood on the corner of his mouth. He gently coughed and slowly resheathed the emperor's sword. Then he stepped forward and stopped at a broken corpse. It was Hu Hu. In the collision, Jian Wushuang's sword stroke defeated Hu Hu's axe shadow and then smashed half of Hu Hu's body. Hu Hu died on the spot. The power of Boundless Heaven sword art is extremely terrifying. With my current sword principle cultivation, I can only display the first move, Annihilation sword move, but its power is still far beyond the secret skills I created, Jian Wushuang thought. After he mastered the first move, he had regarded it as his trump card, as it was too powerful. For example, the Violet Calamity sword skill created by him was also very powerful, but it was much weaker than the Annihilation sword move. He chose to have a head-on confrontation with Hu Hu due to this trump card. He knew Hu Hu could not resist this sword move even if he was a superior divine realm expert. Hu Hu was directly killed by this sword move indeed. Of course, powerful as this sword move was, it was also demanding, especially in the aspects of spiritual power. Though Jian Wushuang had a fierce fight with Hu Hu, he used at most 20% of his spiritual power. But once he operated the Annihilation sword move, he immediately consumed 30% of his spiritual power. That was to say, his spiritual power could only support him to use Annihilation sword move 3 times, and then it would be exhausted. It seems that I'd better use Boundless Heaven sword art less in the future, Jian Wushuang thought. Anyway, he had already killed Hu Hu. As his 11 targets had been killed, his mission was completed. In addition, through the battle with Hu Hu, he had a very clear understanding of his own strength. He was slightly stronger than the advanced Divine Realm experts up to now. He could compete with a superior Divine Realm expert in a head-on confrontation, and even have the chance to defeat and even kill him. Of course, there were also strong and weak superior Divine Realm experts. Hu Hu was only a weak one, while some superior Divine Realm experts were extremely powerful, such as the Vice Palace Masters in the Dao Palace. Jian Wushuang knew that any Vice Palace Master could kill Hu Hu easily. My comprehension of Dao is still shallow. At present, I'm not qualified to cultivate those secret skills which can greatly enhance my offensive power. If I can improve my comprehension of Tao a little, World Tao or Slaughter Tao, and master 5 occults, I'll have more assurance in the face of the superior divine realm experts, Jian Wushuang murmured, clenching his fists. He did not stay in the ruins for long. After collecting Hu's body and weapon, he left directly. He did not discover that a young man was standing quietly in the void near the ruins. That was a demonic youth with scarlet hair, holding a longsword on his back. Chapter 693 Mission Complete. Chapter 693 Mission Complete. Jian Wushuang killed Hu on his own. The evil scarlet-haired youth had been hiding near the castle for so long that he had witnessed everything happened in it. If he had not seen that with his own eyes, he would never believe that a skyscraping realm expert could kill a superior divine realm expert. Though Hu has suffered a sneak attack from Jian Wushuang before, he recovered by taking elixir. Therefore, it's amazing that Jian Wushuang could kill him. No wonder the disciples and palace masters said that Jian Wushuang was a monster. He is indeed mighty. There is no need for Xianyi to have me here. The youth shook his head while thinking. The ancient sect is capable of obtaining all kinds of intelligence, especially in the area under its jurisdiction. Hu had his dirty businesses hidden quite well, but the ancient sect still found them. Therefore, the sect must have also learned of his power before releasing the mission. And that's why the words reporting that Hu is likely a superior divine realm expert was included in his portrait. However, Xianyi removed those words from the file after he received it on purpose. The youth analyzed in secret, and then he decided to send a message to Xianyi. Palace Master Xianyi, Jian Wushuang has killed Hu on his own. Immediately he got a reply from him. Okay, I got it. Come back now. The youth shrugged. Xianyi intentionally gave Jian Wushuang an opponent who was a superior divine realm expert, but also asked me to protect this disciple in secret. How careful he is. The youth complained as he headed back. After killing Hu, Jian Wushuang found a quiet place to regain his spiritual power. He glanced over the treasures in Hu's interspatial ring. I have to say that these treasures are really out of the ordinary. Having been a local tyrant for so long, Hu is wealthier than most superior divine realm experts. Though those treasures are worth 340,000 pieces of divine gems, a few may be useful to me. After a brief appraisal of the treasures, Jian Wushuang returned to the ancient sect. 3 days later, he arrived at the sect, and the first thing he did after he returned was to see his master. Master, I'm back. He stood before Xianyi and said respectfully, You've completed your mission? Xianyi looked at him with a faint smile. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded and waved his hand. A pile of corpses immediately appeared lying on the ground. All the 11 targets, including 6 medium divine realm experts and 5 superior ones, have been killed, and these are their bodies. Xianyi looked at the bodies with a cold eye. Did things go on well? He asked casually. Yes, except that it took me a lot of effort to kill Hu. Jian Wushuang answered honestly. Oh. Xianyi glanced at him with a slight nod. Anyway, you've completed the mission successfully, and this is proof of your power. I'll make an application to help you enter the Eternal Zone. Thank you, Master. Jian Wushuang expressed his gratitude. Then go. Xianyi waved his hand. Jian Wushuang immediately turned away. Xianyi watched his back with a meaningful smile. He managed to kill a superior divine realm expert, and yet, he mentioned no word about that to me. Should it be that he didn't take Hu seriously at all, or is he trying to hide his power from others? After returning to Enlightenment Mountain, Jian Wushuang continued cultivating. As time went by, the opening date of the Eternal Zone drew near. Finally, 3 days before the opening, the ancient sect released a name list of those who could enter the Eternal Zone. Every time the zone was opened, the 3 magnates and 9 top sects would have their young disciples, who should also have reached the divine realm, adventure in it. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Besides, there was a certain rule about how many people each sect could dispatch to the zone. For example, the 3 magnates could send 10. As for the 9 top sects, it was 6. Though the ancient sect was even greater than the 3 magnates in some ways, rules were rules, so the sect could only send 6 disciples there. And they were Lu Chong, Situyi, Luo Yong, Donger Feng, and Jian Wushuang. There was no need to say how powerful Feng was. After all, he was the personal disciple of the Palace Master Destruction and had improved his power by much in these years, with likelihood of becoming an advanced divine realm expert and reaching the eternal realm. No one was surprised at his being able to enter. Luo Yong and Donger were the most outstanding disciples among their peers before Jian Wushuang and Feng joined the sect. Having reached the divine realm and mastering some powerful secret skills, their future was as promising as Feng's. Therefore, it was reasonable that they were on the list. As for Lu Chong and Situyi, they had entered the sect for more than 100 years and could not be called youngsters, but they were both talented and had missed the chance to get into the zone last time. In view of this, their names were put on the list as well. Among the two, Situyi was in the advanced divine realm, but he had reached the highest level and was more powerful than Feng, Luo Yong, and Donger. Lu Chong, who was also on the list, was a real superior divine realm expert in fact. Those 5 people were mighty and had a lot potential, and their qualification was beyond all doubt. However, Jian Wushuang was different to them. He was just in the skyscraping realm, and there had never been anyone in the skyscraping realm adventuring in the Eternal Zone before. His name on the list confused many others. Chapter 694 Xian Yi's Exhortations. Chapter 694. Xian Yi's Exhortations. In a vacant area in the Dao Palace was a table, where Jian Wushuang, Feng Huaing, Bing Shan, Xianing, and Wu Huang were sitting. Because they were all from the ancient world and had been brought into the ancient sect by Xian Yi at the same time, they were always gathered together to enjoy drinking wine and chatting. From time to time, some disciples went passing by those 6, and most of them would also cast their eyes on Jian Wushuang while talking in a low voice. It's incredible that Jian Wushuang, a skyscraping realm disciple, can get into the eternal zone at this time. Yeah. Have you ever seen anyone in that realm succeed in completing an earth-level task? No. Even I, having reached the divine realm a long time ago, would not accept such a task. The first time the sect announced that Jian Wushuang could go into the eternal zone, there was a lot of doubt if he was qualified to do so. But soon after that, when those skeptics learned that he had completed an extremely hard earth-level task, they shut up. After all, in this world, the stronger one could talk louder. Generally, the tasks at the earth level should be assigned to advanced divine realm experts, and it was always uncertain if they could complete them. That is to say, anyone who could complete them was at least no weaker than those advanced experts. That being said, Jian Wushuang's power and talent were beyond doubt. Listen, Jian Wushuang, there are so many people talking about you, Huaing said to him with a smile. It has been 8 years since we 6 entered the sect, and now the best ones among us are you and Feng. Bing Shan echoed in a tone of admiration. I'm no match for him. Feng shook his head at those words while looking toward Jian Wushuang. He had lost all his desire to catch up to him because he knew that this man had made it to the 30th floor of 9th Heaven Road in the sect competition. He had been left far behind, and he knew that himself. Hold it, guys. Let's just enjoy drinking. Jian Wushuang grinned while holding up his cup of wine. While the other 4 were drinking, Feng and Jian Wushuang suddenly paused. The former looked at the latter and asked, You have also received a message, haven't you? Yeah. It's time to go now. Jian Wushuang nodded and then turned to the other 4. Guys, Feng and I gotta go now. Please enjoy your time even without us. Huaing replied to them with concern. Okay. I heard that the Eternal Zone is quite dangerous. Please take care and good luck to both of you. We will, and thank you. Jian Wushuang and Feng rose up and headed out. Swish. Swish. Jian Wushuang and Feng arrived in front of the huge wormhole in the ancient sect at the same time, and soon afterward Lu Chong, Situyi, Luo Yong, and Donger arrived as well. Are you Jian Wushuang? Asked a man dressed in purple with a ferocious aura, looking at Jian Wushuang. That man was Situyi. He wore a gentle smile despite his aura. Finally, I can see the great genius of our sect with my own eyes. Jian Wushuang returned his smile. He could tell that he was an outgoing man. Being a striking contrast to that man, Lu Chong, a red-haired youth, looked quite indifferent. At that moment he was also looking at Jian Wushuang, and his eyes full of a strange feeling met with his. This boy, he could not help thinking, the others only know that he finished an Earth-level task, they don't know that he has also killed a superior Divine Realm expert. Lu Chong was the exact man who had taken Xian Yi's order to keep Jian Wushuang safe in secret. By that chance he had witnessed how Jian Wushuang had killed Hu, thus, he knew Jian Wushuang better than the others did. Jian Wushuang. The youth finally spoke out. A question has confused me for quite a while. In terms of your cultivation in the Tao, you should have reached the Divine Realm, so why are you still stuck in the skyscraping realm? This question aroused the interest of the other four as well. They all looked at Jian Wushuang waiting for his answer. It was true that Jian Wushuang was powerful enough to break through to the Divine Realm. Well, for some time Jian Wushuang could not find any more words to answer the question. Right then, several whooshing sounds reached them along with some figures. Of these 8 newcomers, 7 of them were masters of the Tao Palace, including Palace Master Imo Tao, Palace Master Baiyu, and Palace Master Destruction, who was also Feng's master. The Vice Master of the Sword Palace, Ling Yu, was also among them. The Eternal Zone was a place of great opportunities, and the disciples of the sects would have adventures in its outer layer, while those experts who had reached the Eternal Realm would try their luck in its inner layer. Everyone has arrived. Let's go. Just as Palace Master Destruction gave the order, the wormhole in front of them was immediately activated. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and waited for the journey to being, and right at that moment, he surprisingly received a message from his master, Xian Yi. Wushuang, you're on your way to the Eternal Zone. But remember that you must be careful after you get there. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded. Xian Yi then continued with a laughing voice, look, besides the danger that lies in the zone, you should also watch your back when dealing with the people from the 3 magnates and other sections. Why? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Why did Master say this to me? At that point he was suddenly hit by an idea. There are always competitions between all the sections. Could it be that they all want to eliminate the geniuses of other sects with this chance? He had experienced such kind of things before, so he was able to figure it out quickly. Master, I'll be careful and remember every single word you said. Jian Wushuang replied. In the Eternal Zone all connections with the outside are cut. No message can leave there. Therefore, even if you really run into danger someday, I can't be there for you in time, so you'll be all on your own, Xian Yi added. I understand, Master. Jian Wushuang nodded again. Let's set off now. Palace Master Destruction's voice interrupted their conversation. Jian Wushuang immediately walked into the wormhole with the others. They had long believed that secret skills could only improve their power by no more than 10 times. It indeed is true that their secret skill can produce such a magical effect. As far as I know, the first 5 levels of the skill can increase one's power by 15 times. The master's words caused Jian Wushuang's pupils to suddenly shrink. 15 times, he exclaimed to himself. If what the master said is true, this secret skill is indeed invaluable. Chapter 696, A Powerful Gathering. Chapter 696, A Powerful Gathering. Vice Palace Master Ling Yu, according to you, my ancient sect possesses the techniques of the first 4 levels of the ancient god's secret skill. But why have I never seen them in the secret skill pavilion, nor seen experts from my sect displaying them? Lu Chong asked, frowning. The others nodded their heads in agreement. If the ancient sect indeed possessed these techniques, then surely they would have been given to the disciples to cultivate. Yet, nobody had heard of any disciple cultivating the secret skill, which could boost one's offensive power by up to 12 times. Let me refer to the opportunity one just mentioned, the demon god essence blood. Lingyu began to explain. The ancient god's secret skill originated from the demon god clan, and that's why even though it's powerful, it's apparently only suitable for the demon god clansmen to cultivate. For us human warriors to cultivate this secret skill, we have to consume demon god essence blood. By consuming demon god essence blood, we gain the trace of demon god bloodline it contains, which will enable us to cultivate the ancient god's secret skill. More demon god essence blood will be needed to cultivate the ancient god's secret skill to the highest level. Under normal circumstances, the first 4 levels of the ancient god's secret skill will only require 10 drops of demon god essence blood to cultivate. But it ain't simple to obtain the essence blood, for demon gods have to be hunted down and killed. That's why few in the firmament territory have truly been able to cultivate up to the 4th level. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang and company began to understand. According to the Vice Palace Master, killing 1 copper armor demon god would grant only 1 drop of demon god essence blood, which meant that 10 of them would have to be killed to obtain 10 drops. However, these demon gods are powerful and certainly not easy to kill. Apart from being a requirement for the cultivation of the ancient god's secret skill, consuming the demon god essence blood will greatly strengthen one's body. After all, the demon god clansmen's strongest aspect is their bodies. The more essence blood absorbed, the more powerful one's body will become, Lingyu said. Jian Wushuang and company nodded silently. They finally understood the true uses of the demon god essence blood. The first was to cultivate the ancient god's secret skill, while the second was to strengthen their bodies. The last thing I have to tell you about is the third greatest opportunity in the Eternal Zone. The demon god baptismal pool, which also originates from the demon god clan, Lingyu continued. However, it's useless to y'all for the time being and cannot be obtained in the outer layer, and so I shan't elaborate on it. All in all, during your future adventures in the outer layer of the Eternal Zone, try your best to hunt down and kill demon gods, and find ways to obtain as much demon god essence blood as possible. It's the only opportunity you can obtain in the outer layer. Feng Luchong and the others nodded upon hearing this. Though only the demon god essence blood was obtainable, it would be of an astonishing benefit to them, and was indeed a great opportunity. But Jian Wushuang could not help frowning. Based on what Vice Palace Master Lingyu said, the Eternal Zone is the demon god clan's home, where they've always lived and never been oppressive toward human warriors in any way. Yet, because of the great attraction that their essence blood and ancient god's secret skill pose for human warriors, the various sects of the firmament territory, upon the opening of the Eternal Zone every 100 years, would charge in and hunt down these demon gods. This is what has been going on. Though the demon god clansmen could not be considered humans, they were also earthly creatures after all. Furthermore, what separated them from demonic and spirit beasts was the fact that they had always lived in their own home without ever antagonizing human warriors. Jian Wushuang was by no means a kind person. On the contrary, a countless number of people have already died at his hands ever since he began his cultivation. His actions had all along been dictated by what his heart fancied. He was now somewhat displeased and even disgusted by the actions of the various sects of the firmament territory, yet ironically, he was among the people who would enter the Eternal Zone this time. There's no hurry. Let's go to the Eternal Zone and see how the demon god clansmen are like first. If they're of an evil and cruel nature, I'll be fine with killing them. But if that's not the case, we shall see, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. The party continued on their journey for some time, and only stopped when they arrived in an ancient forest. In the middle of this ancient forest, there were many figures already in wait. These were the experts and disciples from the other top sects who had arrived long before. Every time the Eternal Zone opened, the top sects were each allowed to send in 6 disciples, while the 3 magnates were each allowed 10 disciples. Though there was a quota imposed on disciples, there was no such limit on the experts who had attained the Eternal Realm. Regardless of which sect they were from, an Eternal Realm expert could enter the Eternal Zone so long as they wished to. That was why an extremely large number of experts entered the Eternal Zone every time it opened. There were 8 Eternal Realm experts from the ancient sect alone, while the other top sects, particularly the 3 magnates, provided similar numbers. The overall strength and class of the three magnates were comfortably superior to those of the other top sections. Take the ancient sect for instance. Its total number of Eternal Realm experts did not exceed 20. By contrast, each of the three magnates had more than 40 Eternal Realm experts, more than twice what the ancient sect had. Naturally, the more Eternal Realm experts a sect possessed, the more experts it would send to venture into the Eternal Zone. There were hence a dozen or more Eternal Realm experts sent by each of the three magnates. The many Eternal Realm experts and the Divine Realm disciples were gathered together, silently watching their surroundings. Jian Wushuang too began to look around, sweeping his gaze across the experts and disciples sent by the three magnates. As he did so, he could sense many veiled gazes directed back at him. Many of these gazes came from people of the other top sections. It seems that I'm still kinda popular. Smiling faintly, he nevertheless remained on high vigilance. He could discern that some of these gazes harbored malintent, and most crucially, there were a few among them who were very powerful and could be considered a threat to him. Wu Dao, Dao Mei and Shui Guzi, why these peeps? What madness is this from the Cloud Sea Asgard? Lu Chong suddenly exclaimed. What's the matter? Jian Wushuang and company peered sideways at Lu Chong. Look, among the Cloud Sea Asgard's 10 disciples, there are 3 of them whose auras are extremely powerful and who have already attained the superior divine realm level. Lu Chong lowered his voice and spoke. Chapter 697 A Reunion with Gong Chao. Chapter 697 A Reunion with Gong Chao. Spotted. Jian Wushuang turned his sights toward Cloud Sea Asgard's contingent and nodded his head gently. He had long noticed the aforementioned trio, who each exerted immense pressure on him and were obviously superior divine realm experts. I know all 3 of them. They're the most outstanding disciples of Cloud Sea Asgard, especially Wu Dao, whom I've traded blows with. Unfortunately, I lost terribly in that fight. He's considered to be one of the most powerful among the superior divine realm experts, and is comparable to the vice palace masters of Dao Palace. Lu Chong spoke in a deep voice. And the 3 of them are considered within Cloud Sea Asgard to be disciples of the previous generation. Though they haven't been to the Eternal Zone before, Cloud Sea Asgard has all along prioritized developing a new generation of disciples, and so for one disciple of the previous generation to come to the Eternal Zone would have been noteworthy. Why would 3 of them come at the same time? Odd. Lu Chong was somewhat puzzled. Jian Wushuang, however, squinted his eyes delicately upon hearing this. He lifted his head and took a glance at the trio. They were among those he had noticed directing veiled gazes at him. He began to suspect that the trio might have come for him. Of course, this was only a suspicion which he could not confirm. As he continued to ponder to himself, a figure from Cloud Sea Asgard's contingent charged toward him all of a sudden. Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang looked toward the direction which the voice came from, and instantly saw a purple-robed youth, who carried a stone cudgel on his back, standing in front of him. Ha Gong Chao. Jian Wushuang revealed a smile upon recognizing the arriver. The purple-robed youth was Gong Chao, the super genius who impressively clinched first place in the Firmament Territory Feast 8 years back. Jian Wushuang had fought with him during the feast but lost because he held back much of his strength. However, later on, during the 4th round of the Cultivation Age test, he became the definition of a monster and completely stole the limelight from the latter. In the end, he joined the ancient sect together with Xian Yi, whereas Gong Chao went over to Cloud Sea Asgard. 8 years had passed. The 2 geniuses who put in the most dazzling performances during the Firmament Territory Feast were once again reunited. However, by this time, Gong Chao had already attained the Divine Realm, whereas Jian Wushuang had still only attained the Skyscraping Realm. We haven't met for 8 years. Do you still remember what I said to you during the Firmament Territory Feast? Gong Chao regarded Jian Wushuang with his gleaming eyes. Jian Wushuang raised an eyebrow. I said that I would fight for superiority with you the next time we meet. 8 years have passed. Gong Chao paused before continuing. During these 8 years, I've done everything possible to increase my strength, while always looking forward to the day we meet again. That day has finally arrived. What do you want to do? Jian Wushuang laughed faintly as he looked at Gong Chao, who was a genius he quite appreciated. You know the answer. As Gong Chao raised his head to look at Jian Wushuang, a gush of battle intent shot out of his eyes. Jian Wushuang, let's fight. Gong Chao deliberately raised his voice as he uttered that last sentence, causing the experts and disciples from the various sects to quickly look over. Their expressions got weird when they saw that Gong Chao had approached Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang from Ancient Sect and Gong Chao from Cloud Sea Asgard. These two were the most outstanding performers during the last Firmament Territory Feast. During the last Firmament Territory Feast, Jian Wushuang was defeated by Gong Chao, and so by right, it should be him issuing the challenge this time. Who would have thought that Gong Chao would be the one to propose instead? It's normal. Although Jian Wushuang lost during the Firmament Territory Feast, he displayed a lot more exceptional talent than Gong Chao, and later on, his extraordinary performances in the Ancient Sect led Palace Master Gong Yi to take him in as a personal disciple. Gong Chao probably knows that Jian Wushuang is no weaker than him and may even be stronger, and that's why he proposed the challenge. Many of the experts standing around the two geniuses were busy in their private discussions. And when the experts from the Ancient Sect and Cloud Sea Asgard saw what was happening, they simply exchanged looks and showed no sign of preventing it. It was an open secret that the two sects had long enjoyed a rivalry. Thus, neither side thought much about a duel between their disciples so long as it was not a life-and-death battle. Jian Wushuang, you won't refuse this duel, right? Gong Chao looked at Jian Wushuang and spoke solemnly. Of course, I can tell that you haven't attained the divine realm, and so for fairness' sake, I shall hold back my strength and not exert anything beyond the scope of the skyscraping realm. How about that? Hold back your strength deliberately? Jian Wushuang could not help laughing as he looked at Gong Chao, whose battle intent was surging. You don't have to do that. Just come at me with all you've got. Are you sure? Gong Chao's complexion darkened. Of course, a very confident Jian Wushuang replied. All right, watch out. Without delay, the stone cudgel which Gong Chao carried on his back appeared in his hands. A vast aura gushed from his body and formed a strange suppressive force which charged toward Jian Wushuang. Gong Chao, over these 8 years, his strength has indeed increased considerably. Jian Wushuang looked indifferent. Gong Chao was a true genius. After 8 years of cultivation in Cloud Sea Asgard, which was the Firmament Territory's premier sect, he was by now at least no weaker, and most likely already stronger than Feng. Let's begin. As soon as Gong Chao spoke, his figure disappeared and reappeared right in front of Jian Wushuang, following which the stone cudgel struck out mercilessly. All that could be seen in the void was a thick black shadow which seemed to be formed from a bunch of overlapping cudgel shadows. A brutal power immediately swept forth. An advanced divine realm expert who's probably the best among his realm. Jian Wushuang was able to gauge Gong Chao's strength at the very instant that the latter made a move. The long sword behind his back immediately appeared in his hands. This was the heart-killing sword. As for the Emperor sword, Jian Wushuang kept it in an interspatial ring and did not draw on it. With a long sword in his hands, the sword heart in his sea of consciousness shook gently. In an instant, Jian Wushuang was able to summon 50% of the sword heart's power. 50% of the sword heart's power should be about enough? Squinting his eyes, the long sword in his hand swept forth at the very next moment. Clang! The tip of the heart-killing sword collided with the front of the stone cudgel, creating a low-pitched noise. With a twist of his wrist, Jian Wushuang pulled back the sword and casually swung it once more. It swept toward Gong Chao's chest in a smooth motion that caused Gong Chao's complexion to change dramatically. Terrifying skill. Although shocked, Gong Chao remained composed as he forcefully drew back the stone cudgel and struck out once more. With a faint smile, Jian Wushuang abruptly lowered the long sword and easily evaded contact with the stone cudgel. The tip of his long sword then flitted in a ghost-like fashion as it swung toward Gong Chao's throat at lightning speed. Chapter 698 Concealment. Chapter 698 Concealment. That was fast. Gong Chao's complexion had turned completely grim when the next moment, a yin-yang power rose from his body. His yin-yang Dao and Thunderbolt Dao burst out completely. His cudgel then made successive swings, of which some were lightning fast and extremely powerful, while some were gentle and weak. The two Daos combined and were exerted in perfection. Gong Chao's staff technique was extraordinarily exquisite. Although his understanding of Dao was certainly not the best, the power he was able to showcase when he fully exerted his Daos was definitely a lot greater than that of many advanced Divine Realm experts. But what about Jian Wushuang? He instead put on a perfect display of his swordsmanship. It was a whole lot more exquisite than Gong Chaos staff technique. Although he did not exert as much strength as the latter, he could count on his swordsmanship to perfectly withstand the staff technique which combined yin and yang. On occasion, his offensive strokes would even cause Gong Chao great discomfort. One glance was all it took to see that Jian Wushuang held the upper hand, even if it was but a small advantage. And this was only because he was deliberately holding back the greater part of his strength. Up till this point, he had only summoned up half of the sword heart's power, and had not drawn on the Emperor's sword at all. There are many people around, and among them are quite a few who harbor malintent toward me. My coming journey in the Eternal Zone will be very dangerous, such that death is a real possibility. Every bit of my strength that I'm able to conceal may prove decisive. Although Jian Wushuang appeared to be sparing no efforts in his duel with Gong Chao, he was actually being extremely discreet. In his heart, he was utterly clear about the matter. Many of the experts from these sects were likely to be targeting him. It would be as good as courting death to reveal all of his trump cards during this fight. Therefore, he concealed as much as he could of his strength. Of course, he could not be too discreet or otherwise suspicions might arise. After all, news that he completed Earth-level tasks in the Divine Palace had long spread, proving that he definitely possessed strength on the level of the advanced Divine Realm. He therefore displayed skill on the level of said realm, and only gained a slight advantage in the duel because his swordsmanship was somewhat superior to his opponent's staff technique. Bam! 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 A series of violent roars sounded. As if backed into a corner, Gong Chao found an opportunity to step back and began to summon his trump card move. Jian Wushuang, watch out! The stone cudgel in his hand struck out at the very instant that he spoke. The air was completely suppressed in an instant, as a massive stream of overlapping cudgel shadows surged directly toward Jian Wushuang. In terms of power, this had clearly reached the threshold of a rank 4 secret skill. Violet Calamity Sword skill. Jian Wushuang too began to exert his trump card move. A bright purple light began to shine. What captured everyone's attention as soon as it was displayed was a sword move of absolute beauty and world-destroying power. It was obvious that Jian Wushuang's Violet Calamity Sword skill was the much stronger secret skill. After all, his cultivation of sword principle was so high that this sword skill had already attained the level of a top level 4 secret skill. However, the contact force of 50% of his sword heart's power was considerably less than that exerted by Gong Chao. The two skills collided head-on, causing both Jian Wushuang and Gong Chao to be knocked back. They turned out to be an even match. After this collision, Jian Wushuang and Gong Chao stopped fighting and showed no intention to continue. I've lost this fight, Gong Chao said in a rather deep voice. It was a draw. I didn't beat you. Jian Wushuang laughed. You're after all just a skyscraping realm expert, whereas I've already attained the divine realm. Shaking his head, Gong Chao took a solemn glance at Jian Wushuang, then calmly opened his mouth to say 2 words. He did not vocalize these 2 words and instead simply mouthed them. He even concealed his mouth movement so well that none of the spectating experts and disciples noticed. Jian Wushuang, I look forward to my next fight with you. I'll make sure it's an exciting one, Gong Chao said and swiftly went back among Cloud Sea Asgard's contingent. Jian Wushuang simply smiled faintly, then turned to head back toward Ancient Sect's contingent. However, his vision became abnormally sharp after he turned his body. Although nobody else had noticed the mouth movement that Gong Chao had made expressionlessly, Jian Wushuang saw it clearly as he was standing directly in front. He could clearly decipher what these two words were. Watch out! Gong Chao wanted him to be careful, and even had to warn him in such an obscure manner. Jian Wushuang certainly understood what this implied. His prior suspicions were now confirmed. The three elite Divine Realm experts sent by Cloud Sea Asgard, namely Wu Dao, Dao Mei and Shueguzi, had indeed come for him. These three Divine Realm experts sure think highly of me. Was my improvement in the ancient sect really that amazing? Why else would these top sects think so highly of me, such that even the illustrious Cloud Sea Asgard would be this afraid? Jian Wushuang furrowed his brows tightly. He did not know why. The truth was that the top sects and the three magnates did not think this highly of him solely because of his improvement in the ancient sect over the past few years. The most important reason was his current status. No sect could afford to not take seriously someone who was the personal disciple of Palace Master Xuani. The experts and disciples of Cloud Sea Asgard were all looking at Jian Wushuang at this very moment. Among those disciples, the trio of Wu Dao, Dao Mei and Shueguzi, whose auras were the most brutal, carried a hint of scorching heat in their eyes. This little fella is our target? There was a devilish smile at the corner of Dao Mei's mouth. After watching his fight with our junior Gong Chao, I would rate his strength as merely SOSO. Only his swordsmanship is any above average, Wu Dao remarked dismissively. It's highly impressive for a skyscraping realm expert to possess this level of battle strength and swordsmanship already. However, while he may be able to put up a fight against an elite Divine Realm expert, he will be completely defenseless against us. Shueguzi's expression was one of indifference. Humph, judging from that level of strength, I'll finish him off in one stroke. Wu Dao sneered. Don't get careless. Dao Mei darted a look at Wu Dao and reminded in a low voice, don't forget Great Elder's instructions. Wu Dao's face sank upon hearing this. At the same time, he began to recall what the Great Elder of Cloud Sea Asgard, Yun Fan, had instructed them to do before they set off. Listen, you three. This time your target isn't those demon gods, but Jian Wushuang instead. Do whatever it takes to kill him, but remember, do not let the ancient sect get something on us. Chapter 699 The Fifth Level of Occult. Chapter 699 The Fifth Level of Occult. The experts and disciples from the various sects waited quietly in the sky above the ancient forest. After some time, a bunch of experts from the three magnates began to jointly do something on the void. What are they doing? Jian Wushuang and the other disciples were puzzled. They're opening up the wormhole that leads to the Eternal Zone. Vice Palace Master Ling Yu explained. The Eternal Zone may be hidden within this ancient forest, but it's an isolated space which, although rather stable, would weaken once every 100 years. When this happens, a few Eternal Realm experts working together will be able to force an opening into it. However, a forced opening won't be too stable, and as such, y'all will appear in random places throughout the Eternal Zone when you enter. In other words, y'all will be separated in the Eternal Zone, and will have to find your own way around. What's more, y'all can only remain in the Eternal Zone for up to 10 days. By the 10th day, y'all must have reached the border of the Eternal Zone, where there'll naturally be a way to get all of you out. Is that really so? Jian Wushuang and company nodded inwardly. The Eternal Zone opened only once every 100 years, and each time it did was only for 10 days. To everyone who was present, a period of 10 days was certainly way too short. This opportunity was indeed hard to come by. Do we really have to move around on our own? Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. Also, remember never to enter the inner layer. Vice Palace Master Ling Yu exhorted once more. The inner layer is the demon god clan's lair, where there are untold dangers. Even an Eternal Realm expert of my ilk will have to be very careful there, for the slightest of carelessness will be one's downfall. For those of you who are only Divine Realm experts, entering the inner layer will spell certain death. Understood. Jian Wushuang and company nodded. They knew that only Eternal Realm experts were qualified enough to enter the inner layer, and even then, said experts would be courting death by entering such an incomparably dangerous place. Under the joint efforts of the Eternal Realm experts, 2 wormholes appeared above the void before long. Of these 2 wormholes, one led to the outer layer of the Eternal Zone, while the other led directly to the inner layer. The wormholes have been fully created. Let's head in, and please take care of yourselves for the next 10 days, Palace Master Destruction said as he looked all around. The many experts of the ancient sect, including Jian Wushuang and the other 5 disciples, nodded and immediately headed toward the 2 wormholes. The people from the other top sects and the 3 magnates too made their way toward the 2 wormholes. The Eternal Realm experts stepped into the wormhole that led to the inner layer, while the Divine Realm disciples stepped into the wormhole that led to the outer layer. In quick succession, figure after figure disappeared into the wormholes. Among Cloud Sea Asgard's contingent, the disciples were the last to enter the wormholes. Before entering, Wu Dao, who was first in line among them, even specially exhorted, "All of you, please don't forget your mission after entering the Eternal Zone." The disciples of Cloud Sea Asgard nodded repeatedly upon hearing this. Gong Chaos' pupils constricted a little, but he too nodded. Soon, the experts and disciples from the 9 top sects and the 3 magnates had all crossed into the Eternal Zone. This was an ancient forest which emitted an ancient aura. Towering old trees, which were more than 1,000 feet in height, were aplenty in the depths of the forest. A pale white smoke also pervaded the entire forest. This white smoke was very rarefied and carried a delicate fragrance. Standing on a branch atop a towering old tree was a young man dressed in a black robe and carrying a long sword. His eyes were looking around at his surroundings. Is this really the Eternal Zone? Jian Wushuang was muttering to himself, around whom were all kinds of large trees. He could sense that the Eternal Zone possessed an abundance of spiritual power that was not less, and perhaps even more, in amount than the outside world. At the very end of his line of sight was a pale golden light which covered an extensive territory. Is that the inner layer over there? He squinted his eyes. The Eternal Zone was incomparably vast. It was said that the outer layer alone stretched tens of millions of miles, while the inner layer was even larger in surface area. The many Divine Realm disciples who entered the Eternal Zone were, at this moment, scattered all over the outer layer. According to Vice Palace Master Lingyu, the greatest danger in the Eternal Zone comes from those demon gods. They see humans as marauders and hate us like none other. What's more, they have a special way to instantly differentiate their clansmen from human warriors. I wonder how they look like and how strong they are. Jian Wushuang murmured but quickly shook his head. But aside from them, the threats I face here in the Eternal Zone also include the disciples from the other sects, especially Cloud Sea Asgard. This time Cloud Sea Asgard has sent no less than 3 elite Divine Realm disciples, among whom include the extremely powerful Wu Dao. I'm unable to deal with them based on my current strength, and should therefore find a way to increase my strength somewhat before I go find those demon gods. A radiance shone in Jian Wushuang's eyes. In his present state, his cultivation of sword principle and secret skill could not be improved for the time being. However, his Dao understanding had lots of room for improvement. When he set off from the ancient sect, his understanding of the World Dao and Slaughter Dao was only one step away from comprehending the 5th level of occult. Subsequently, the fight with Gong Chao allowed him to find a glimmer of opportunity which made him feel as if he could gain comprehension of the 5th level of occult at any time. It should be known that there was an extremely huge gulf between comprehension of the 4th and 5th level of occult. My strength will go up a level regardless of which Dao it is that I'm able to comprehend the 5th level of occult of, and combined with my other skills, I'll be able to stand toe-to-toe with even the elite Divine Realm experts. That'll grant me the capability to compete against the 3 Divine Realm experts from Cloud Sea Asgard. A solemn-faced Jian Wushuang finally came to a resolve. He wasted no time finding a place in the forest where he could begin his cultivation. The first thing that the other geniuses and disciples thought about upon entering the Eternal Zone was to seek out those demon gods and find a way to kill them for their essence blood. Instead, Jian Wushuang quickly began his cultivation upon entering. This sort of cultivation only required 2 days of time. By the time 2 days had passed, Jian Wushuang had made a breakthrough in his world Dao and fully comprehended its 5th level of occult. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.